Hey, what's up guys? It's Dr. Adam. So what I want to talk about in this week's blog is going to be new puppy conversation, exam, these types of things. So first of all, congratulations. So I usually start off with feeding. I'm passionate about feeding because I think there's a lot of preventable issues related to feeding. So I simplify it. Ask anybody that's ever seen a puppy with me on their first exam. I always simplify feeding. What that means is puppies need puppy food or a simple diet. So if all they get is their dog food and that's it, you're going to avoid my three big issues. One, weight. Weight ultimately comes down to finding that simple ratio between how much they eat and how much they burn. It starts when they're puppies. Start good habits. Give them what they need. Don't get them used to just eating until they're full or keeping an open bowl or giving them a bunch of bones and treats and table scraps. Just their dog food. And the only other way to balance that is their activity. So throughout life, you find that simple little ratio, you're going to make weight very simple and you're going to make it, you're going to prevent a lot of issues. Number two, I'd say by far the number one reason for vomiting and diarrhea is dietary indiscretion, meaning they eat something outside their normal diet. So think about it. We've domesticated dogs. They eat their diet. Their bowels get used to digesting just that diet. When they get something outside that, no different than a vegan eating a piece of meat or a gluten-sensitive person eating bread, lactose intolerant people drinking milk, what's going to happen? They're probably going to get nauseous and sick. So when you go to give your dog that little piece of steak or you get that new bone from the store, don't be surprised if they get vomiting and diarrhea the next day. And then third issue we see is picky, bratty dogs, which means they don't want to eat this, they'll only eat that. That typically is 5,000% owner responsible. So keep it simple. If all they expect is their dog food, that's all they're going to get. If you start straying from that, you're going to start to get the dogs that turn their heads to things or they'll only eat this canned food, not that. So here's your food, here's what you get, that's it. And then I end up by saying my general transition point is around 9-10 months. That's when I like to switch from puppy food to adult food. And we can vary that based upon the size of the breed, but generally speaking. So that's feeding. Here's your food. Number two, training. There's 1,000 different ways to go about training. And yes, I think there's definitely benefits to going puppy classes, but the simplest way to approach it is honor your routine. What do? Your lifestyle is different than mine. So if you wake up at 6 o'clock, you go to bed at 10 o'clock, that's your day. Don't change that. But within that framework, start to establish a routine with your puppy. Here's when we go out. Here's when we're going to eat. Here's kind of my lifestyle. Within that framework, you should start to do positive and negative associations. So everything you want your puppy to do, good dog, praise them. In the spirit of what I just talked about, I don't go crazy with treats just because I don't want to create all the things I talked about before. But if you gab a little bit of your dog food and use that as the treat, I think that's great positive reinforcement. But don't underestimate praise. You just giving them attention a lot of times is positive reinforcement as well. But the real focus is on the negatives. Peeing in the house, pooing in the house, chewing your shoes, barking. What you have to do is create an environment where you always catch them during the act, right? So when you're taking a shower or you're cooking dinner, you're not paying a lot of attention to your puppy. So that's a great time to have them in a safe, confined environment, whether it's a crate or a confined penned area, something like that. So when you catch them during the act, then try and establish that with something negative. Now, I never want this to be your voice or anything physical. I want it to be something indirect. I'm a big fan of pennies in a pop can. Get a bunch of old pop cans, put pennies in them, duct tape the top. It's really a scary, abrasive noise. So if when the puppy goes to defecate, they hear that shake of the can, they get all nervous. Well, great. Don't defecate in the house. But again, people that fail at this, it typically goes back to step one. They didn't catch them during the act. So you see feces in the living room, where were you? There's a breakdown in the model right there. So until they earn your trust, when you're not watching them, they should be in a confined, safe environment. And then spinning from that, if you have that framework, then that's where the benefits of a puppy training class would go in. You could go in there. I always say it's like going into a history class and saying, okay, I got it all, just teach me about George Washington, as opposed to teach me all of history, right? So go there with a targeted problem or question. And the last thing I usually focus on is vaccines and preventatives. So the simplest way to talk about vaccines, there's no right or wrong answer. The general idea is yes, we want to immunize these puppies and get them exposed to some of the common vaccines, those being rabies, distemper, which stands for distemper, hepatitis, parvo, and parainfluenza. That's all packed into one shot. Bordetella, lepto. Those are what we consider core vaccines. So yes, when they're a puppy is when we want to sensitize them to that. And then as their life goes on, this opens discussions on whether we vaccinate every year, every other year, do titers. Can discuss that in the future. As far as preventatives go, I always focus on the big four. We want to prevent against heartworm, internal parasites, fleas, and ticks. And there's a big array of preventives out there. That's something that we can focus on specifically. But again, congrats on your puppies, but focus on the simple things. Feeding, training, work with your veterinarian as far as what the vaccines and preventives are going to be. And then as far as medical issues, be objective. If your puppy's vomiting, diarrhea, isn't eating, those are definitely things that warrant you probably calling your veterinarian, having us trying to get a diagnosis or give you some simple suggestions. But be objective, keep a simple routine. If something strays from that, probably warrants you seeing us. So that's it, guys. Hopefully that was helpful. And any other questions, definitely give us some feedback. Take care.